y'all. Welcome back to the Who's Right podcast. And, spring training has a day off. So, we're coming a little late and decided to do it today. But before we get started with everything, as you can see, I'm already ready for the WBC. But before we get started with everything, like the channel, like this video, subscribe to the channel. Let me know how you're thinking about spring training so far. And Victor, how you doing?
Yeah, doing good, doing good. I know a lot of us on the Northeast are jealous of all the weather that we're seeing from spring training these past weeks, especially seeing people brag about it, you know, with the storms that we've been getting, especially where we're at, where they trick us one day, we get 70 degrees, and then the next day it snows. So, you know, uh, the only saving grace that we have right now is being able to watch those guys down in Port St. Lucie play some ball.
No, for sure, and they're giving us stuff to see, which is fun to see. So this is the first official full week of spring training games, right? We came last week, and the first two games were in the books, and we talked about it. And but this is the actual first week of games, full games, and we got to see a lot of baseball this week. I don't know. I know some of you have probably already checked out of spring training games because you want to see the real thing. And to be honest with you, I've watched um, a lot of spring training games just because I miss baseball and just wanted to watch it. But this week we got word that Peralta is our opening day starter, and I think this was already going to happen. This was a foregone conclusion. All winter we were clamoring for an ace, right? And so um, you know it's expected that he's going to be the opening day starter, and so it's a formality, I think, at this point. But when you hear him speak, when he started talking about it, you saw how much he cared about being the opening day starter. And growing up a Mets fan, it's probably a big deal to him, because all his family's Mets fans and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm ready to see Peralta go against Skeens on opening day. What do you think?
Yeah, nah, that's gonna be ace off for the ages, and I'm excited about it too. The only thing that means for me, the fact that they named him the opening day starter and not Nolan McLean is, well, it means a couple of things. But what I'm taking away from it is that we're getting that contract extension done. Freddie Peralta is going to be a long time Met, and this is going to be a big year for him to go out and prove it. We know that David Stearns doesn't make contracts during the season, so towards the end of the year, we're gonna hear about, oh yeah, they're gonna be talking about it, and then boom, that contract extension is gonna hit. I'm getting a little ahead of myself right now, but a boy can dream, and that's awesome to see him get that nod, especially just coming over here over the winter, and it could mean some big things for the Mets here coming up.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I could see him getting that extension before we get started. But I also could see Stearns wanting him to play it out. Because the difference between Stearns here and Stearns in Milwaukee is that he's not afraid of money here, right? If he'll let Peralta play out the whole season and worry about an extension at the end of the season because we're not worried about money when it comes to being on the Mets. So, you heard the whispers. Ken Rosenthal has some things. Well, Sam had some things, but no substantial talks yet about an extension. But one of the things that I think Ken Rosenthal was talking about was that he wants a long-term deal. Doesn't necessarily need to be high AAV. He just wants to retire with the next team that he pitches with. So whether that's 7 or 8 year deal, Um, at a decent AAV, I could see the Mets doing something like that. Because you're right. Um, Nolan McLean eventually will become the ace of this staff because he has the bigger upside if he reaches that potential. And so the reason he's not opening day starter today or this year is because he's a rookie, right? He hasn't proven it yet. Peralta, after being named the opening day starter, this is the third year in a row that he's starting opening day in New York. 2 years ago against the Mets, last year in the Bronx against the Yankees, and now this year pitching for the Mets.
Yeah, no, that's amazing when you think about that. It's like he was made for the position and made for New York. And so, yeah, it's exciting. And that was my second point too with Nolan McLean. We want to keep the pressure off this guy, this going into this year, with big ramifications if he is able to contend for that rookie of the year this year. It's going to be huge for the Mets with all of the draft capital that they give up. Not something crazy, but we do get a draft pick if he does win Rookie of the Year, and uh, develop and for his development, we got to think this guy last year was still in Double A. He was still pitching in the minor leagues and making his way on up. And he might still have some room to grow. And we want to give him that room without the pressure. We obviously handled that well last year at the end of the year with all the pressure on him. He's obviously going to have a lot of pressure on him pitching for his country coming up here in a couple of weeks or this week. And he's going to have that pressure on being the number 6 overall prospect this year in baseball. And so the less pressure that we can put on him, the better. And uh, having Freddie Peralta not only to take him under his wing but to relieve some of that is good for his development in the long run.
Yeah, no, for sure. He can go at it. Like you said, he's going to the WBC, so he's going to get into some playoff type atmosphere games. The word is for the plan for McLean is to piggyback. Right, he's not going to start any games, but he's going to come in relief for a couple of games, and that's really where you want a McLean to be in. Let him, like you said, grow into the position of becoming the ace without having to worry about being the ace right away, right? And that's Peralta's job. Peralta came in here as the ace, as the guy that has been leading, led his squad last year. Because no Burns and no Woodruff, at least Woodruff for the beginning of the season last year. So he's already got kind of that experience of being the guy. So I'm all for it. But you kind of mentioned McLean being in the WBC. And so I'm excited for the WBC. Everybody's already left: Clay Holmes, Juan Soto, um, um, McLean, Morbido. We have a bunch of guys going to the WBC, and I'm excited for the WBC. As you can see, I'm already repping the hat, ready to go. And all I hope is that everybody comes back with some great experiences and healthy. That's my hope. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I don't know if you heard, but Nolan's playing more than just a piggyback role. Mark DeRosa announced that he's going to be one of the penciled in starters for Team USA. With that star-studded rotation. So Logan Webb's going to lead it off. Tariq Schoolbowl's going to piggyback off of him or go off after him. Then it's going to be Paul Skeens. And then guess who is number 4 in that rotation? Nolan McLean pitching against Team Italy is where he's penciled in right now. And I think that's a big deal for us right now, being this young guy and not even having a full league or full season in the league and already, getting penciled into be one of those starters in conversations with those big dogs is a big deal because we already know that Team USA is highlighted by their pitching, and so that's some exciting stuff. But like you said, there's not just those guys or Nolan to be excited about. We got a lot of guys pitching. Or we still have Clay Holmes pitching in the Classic. We have other guys representing their team. And so it's going to be a great time for baseball. I wish, I'm still going to be sit here and petition that they should replace the All-Star game with the World Baseball Classic. But, that probably will never come. That'd be a great midsummer kind of tournament to give the guys a break and maybe could even extend the season. But, the season's already long enough. And I just think it would provide a little more umph in the uh, gameplay, especially those guys being heated up and ready and already kind of there. But the fact that we get it now in the middle of spring training, just as a little boost to get us ready for baseball, is going to be really exciting. Excited to see the Mets play against Team Nicaragua tomorrow. It's going to be real fun to see Mark Vandos on the other side and represent Nicaragua in that way. We'll see if he can pull something off. He's going to be basically the face of that team. And so, it'd be awesome to see Mark Vientos shine in the World Baseball Classic.
Well, he needs to shine. He needs to bring that trade value up, So, because I still believe that Vientos is going to be traded before the end of spring training, maybe even before he comes back from his WBC Nicaragua stint. And so he does need to show us a little bit in the WBC so we can get that trade value up, because that leads us into the next kind of thing that we want to talk about is the right field competition job. All three guys, Melendez, Talkman, and Benj, or like the St. Louis broadcast, Benji likes to say, but no, we'll go with Benj. And so they've all come out and played well, right? Obviously, most of the power has come from Melendez, but we already knew he had that power. Um, and Talkman's doing Talkman things, right? He's getting on base, hitting, and just a solid veteran. And so the competition in right field is tough. Benj has actually hit decently, not a lot of power yet, but shown his defensive skills and shown us, the ability to get on base and the speed on base. And so it's going to be tough. And according to Mendoza, it's not going to be about the numbers when it comes to Benj if he gets the nod in right field. So that means what? Well, what do you think that means?
Yeah, I mean, I'll stand firm on my beliefs about the right field position right now. I think it'd be best for Benj to start the year in the minor leagues. And not to say that I don't want to see him play this year in the major leagues, but I take you all back to the year 2024 when Mark Vientos was sent down in the minor leagues and had to work on his stuff in those first couple of months and then got opportunities here and there to prove it. He got called up when JD Martinez was extended on that or on the injured list. He got called up when Brett Beatty was struggling a little bit. And what did he have to do? He had to want it more and he had to prove it. And he had to play uh, out of his shoes. And and that's what he did. And it brings us to conversations now of will we get that same Mark Vientos from 2024? Now, I'm not saying Carson Benj is Mark Vientos, but I am saying is that the best thing for Carson Benj is to have that little bit of competition, to have that little bit of desire. Is the last thing you want a player of his caliber to do is to sit back and accept the position that's given to him. And I think with MJ Melendez and Mike Talkman doing as well as they are right now, that's perfect because that just pushes them down to have that little bit of more development. He didn't even spend all of last year in AAA. This will be his first full year or first year starting in AAA, and it could be good just to get some of those things down. Like you said, that power is not quite there. Maybe he can get a little bit of experience in center field because we got to also remember that center field isn't even a guaranteed thing. And so if he can hone in and master center field, then that leaves a lot of pressure off of Luis Robert to be the guy there and gives us a little more flexibility to say, all right, Luis Robert doesn't work. Let's go ahead and bring Benj up, and we still have MJ or Mike in right field to hold it down.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna go the other way. I think it's still Bench's job to lose. I think they want Bench to start off the season because at the end of the day, Talkman is who he is. He's a veteran. He's going to give you solid output, but is he better suited to be a bench bat more than an everyday player? And because he's not an everyday player at this point in his career. And MJ Melendez, did he uncover something? A couple of the home runs he hit were usually holes in his swing. So is he able now? Did he correct something? Time will tell, right? First full week of spring training, it could just be that first full week of spring training, and so I'm not going to. For me, I'm not going to say that MJ and or Mike is Talkman is going to beat Bench because I believe that I'm gonna go with what Mendoza said, and everything is placed there for Bench to win the job. Only because Mendoza said it's not about the numbers. So we can see a mediocre offensive output, and Bench could still win the job. And that whole thing about him not playing in AAA. Well, other teams bring up their prospects from Double A. Not every player plays in AAA, and so obviously, I think a lot of the reasons why our guys are playing in AAA is because there's a logjam. One, they might have not been ready, and two, for example, this year, AJ Ewing's going to be playing in AAA, and or eventually play in AAA because he's going to start off in Double A, and he's a guy that looks great, right? We can be saying right now if once Robert comes out and plays a couple games, hey, if Robert doesn't come out blazing, I know the Mets fan is going to say, well, you at this point you got to give AJ Ewing a shot. I know they're going to say that, and so so at the end of the day, I think right now there's been a logjam. Like for example, Jet Williams was blocked by both. Lindor and McNeil, right? And at least last year, and this year he's blocked by Lindor and Simeon. I don't think they wanted him to play center field, and that's one of the reasons why he got traded because they wanted him in the infield. So I think there's a logjam for the most part with a lot of our prospects right now, because they're all in the upper minors. And so I think if they play in AAA, it's because of the logjam versus if they're ready or not. It could be because they're not ready, but I think mainly is because we're going to have players playing their position.
Yeah, and I can't argue with that. We do want to keep it moving, and um, the worst that could happen is that he falls flat on his face for that first month and he gets sent down. And the one thing that I will say is that out of the three guys, Talkman, Melendez, and Benj has the best defense out of those three. And we know that this team values defense and obviously needs it in right field. And not that Juan Soto was bad last year, but we know elite with an elite center fielder, Gold Glover and Luis Robert, and Carson Bench, that's a lot of surface area they can cover. Um, and Juan Soto still playing left, and he's still got an arm out there, and so um, that's a good defensive outfield. And so
No, for sure, for sure.
you know,
And here's the thing, this is something that I don't think people are talking about, right? We're supposed to have a better offense than we did last year, right? With the additions of Polanco, Bichette, and even Simeon and Robert, right? And we're supposed to have a more consistent offense. And if everybody plays, let's say, to their back of the baseball card, the old phrase, there's not going to be any pressure on bench. The only way there's pressure on bench to perform is if everybody else is not performing. And that's the other part that I think gets left out is, if bench makes this team, it's almost like people are thinking, and this would have been the case last year, right? Because we had a hole from 5 through 9, right? And this would have been the case last year. If Bench would have made the team last year, he would have been expected to perform, right? Just like Vientos was expected to perform, Beatty was expected to perform, Alvarez was expected to perform, and they did it, right? 5 through 9 was a whole. Well, this year, if Bench makes the team with the team that we have, it should be a better offensive team. And so he should not be expected to be this all-star right off the gate. And I think that doesn't get talked about enough as well.
well, keyword should be, because a lot of these guys aren't sure things, haven't had those consistent seasons in a couple of years. Um, you could say Simeon was the last guy to have that consistent season 2 years ago, and Robert was the next guy uh, having that 3 years ago, and then you look at other guys, 7 through 9 with Benj, Beatty, and Alvarez. And those guys are still kind of proven players. They still need to prove that they can be sustainable big league hitters in this league. And so that could put a lot of pressure on Bench to think, these other guys in front of me aren't performing, because obviously if he makes a team, he's batting ninth. And if he's batting ninth, there's not going to be that much pressure on him if those other guys don't perform. If he doesn't have those bases loaded with 2 outs because those guys just struck out and flew out, and he's got to get those guys in. And so a lot of this is what we talked about with Nolan McLean. The pressure is going to be off of him if these other guys can perform. The pressure's off of Nolan if Freddie Peralta performs to his baseball back of the baseball card. The pressure's off of Carson Bench if these other guys can do what we know that they can do in Alvarez and Beatty and Simeon and Robert and even Polanco. Polanco's not a necessarily proven guy. So, when we really
Uh,
think about it, we could also be looking at last year where we're saying we got a good 1 through 4. These other guys got to prove it.
Yeah, no, and I would disagree with you with Polanco. Polanco's been doing it for a while, and so I would say our guarantees are Lindor, Soto, Bichette, and Polanco. Those guys are going to produce to what they've already produced, right? Polanco's going to replace um, Nemo's bat, and Bichette's going to be more hitter a version of Alonso, right? So the two question marks, and this is where I agree with you, are what are Simeon and Robert going to do? Right, Simeon's already gotten to a decent start, so hopefully he can translate that back into the regular season. And if Simeon continues to look the way he's looking in spring training, well, that's 1 through 5 at that point. And so, I think at that point, and Beatty, you're right. We don't know yet. He's got to do it another year in a row. But if he gives us the same thing he did last year, you know, I don't think we need to worry about him. And the one, well, where I'm going to agree with you is Alvarez. Alvarez is entering what, his third full season, and this is his season that he this is the season where he has to show if he's going to be the guy, that catcher, right? One of the best catchers in the league, or is he going to be that guy that shows us flashes, but you know, fades because of either injury or gets tired or what have you. It's just inconsistent, right? This is the year where we're going to find out who Alvarez is. And so, is he going to be that consistent guy, or is he going to be, the inconsistent guy? So that's the question. But at the end of the day, with saying all that I said, I still believe that if those top five produce, at least, and I say if loosely, because it's just part of the sentence, because I do believe that they're going to produce. I don't think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Bench to produce, because he's not going to need to, because of these other guys are producing.
Yeah, no, and I think Carlos Mendoza and all these other guys are going to do their best to make sure that the pressure's off. But we already know what kind of guys these Oklahoma State guys are. They want to um, prove it. They want to be superstars in the league. And we already got a quote from Carson Bench that he doesn't like to strike out. And so, regardless of if these guys, other guys are producing, we know he's going to put pressure on himself either way, and
Yeah.
that's good. That's good for the Mets team, and that's a good spark plug to have.
Yeah, no, for sure, absolutely, absolutely. So let's finish this our time together with talking about one of the guys that we mentioned, Brett Beatty. We saw the first action of Brett Beatty at first base. I've been talking about Brett Beatty at first base for a couple years now, and you could go back to the old videos and fact check me. But Brett Beatty at first base, and he looked decent, right? I'm not going to say he looked great because it was just one game, right? So I'm not going to go off the rails, but I think the more you see Brett Beatty, as long as his back comes with him, you're going to see him play a lot of first base this year.
Yeah, I don't want to say that this is a Brett Beatty fan club, but it kind of is. We love Brett Beatty on this podcast, and we want to see him succeed. We've always believed that he's a major leaguer, and I think this is going to be his year to prove it. He had a couple of years of inconsistency, either due to the pressure being on him to be the guy, or not having that spot because another guy was taking his place. Last year feels like he finally had the ground underneath his feet, and now is creating a runway for him to be this star. I still put him up with his draft class, um, co draftee, and Corbin Carroll. I think he can be a star like Corbin Carroll in the sense. I think he can be that good of a hitter, and I think that he's gonna prove that this year. That's my hot take. I think that Brett Beatty is gonna put up, if not a 2020 season, uh, a 25-25 season. Yeah, I don't think he's gonna get to 30 home runs or 30 steals, but I do think that he's going to get enough playing time that even last year he almost had 20 home runs. And I think this year, with the playing time he's going to get, he's definitely going to get there.
You know what? I don't know about the 2020 because I don't think he got any wheels, but the home runs, I'll take your hot take, but well, we talked about it, right? He has more power than a Jeff McNeil, right? So he if he does have the potential of playing all those games, he might hit around 25 home runs. And so I don't know about the Copen Carroll thing. That's a good hot take. we'll check the tape in a few months on that, and if it happens, great. I'll take it because that means he's only playing first base at that point, right? If he's producing like Carl, so and he's taking a job. He's making Polanco the full time DH is what he's doing, and so I hope that happens. I don't believe it's going to happen, but I'll take your hot take. We'll check the tape in a couple months. Let's see who's right, and no pun intended on that one. So but I'll take it. So Brett Beatty, like he said, Brett Beatty fan club here on the Who's Right podcast. But I think that's going to be it for this week. Everybody had a day off today, at least in Mets land. We saw everybody leave for the WBC. I'm excited for the WBC. Like Victor said, kind of got an exhibition match against Nicaragua tomorrow, so we get to see Vientos. Um, and be ironic that he'll get his second hits off Mets pitching, but what can you do? But before we get out of here, subscribe to the channel, like this video, let us know how you're feeling about spring training, let us know how you think everybody's working out, who do you think is going to make the club. We didn't even get into the bullpen talk and the pitching talk with Ron Darling talking about the pitching. We didn't even get to that, but we can get to that on a later podcast. But let us know how you're feeling and let us know what you're thinking. And before we get out of here, Victor, any last words?
Yeah, no, you said it all, man. I'm excited for the World Baseball Classic, excited for more spring training games, and baseball's here.
Baseball is here. WBC, Dominican Republic. Let's go. And let's go, Mets.